Welcome to the i5 podcast. I'm Jonathan here with my co-host Jim,
So,
and today we will be talking about Labour. It's been a while, and I don't think we've actually posted anything on the Labour government yet since the women's election. But one
yeah,
benefit of that,
we had a 3 month break because
Mm.
A, it was the holidays, and B, stuff happened at a personal level. So,
yep,
yeah,
I had to take some time off doing anything, but it has got one benefit. We didn't. I mean, we normally don't jump into going straight into personal opinions anyway, and it's given us 3 months to look at the Labour government and how they've progressed. Just
hmm
before we go into the stuff that's happened, I've heard all kinds of justifications for Labour's policies right from the get-go from different YouTubers. For example, Bill from A Different Bias would argue Keir Starmer's just making everything up, that he's stealthily putting things in, and that he's doing all of this to keep people on the right happy so he can stay in. I think that's utter bullshit. We'll dismantle that one as we go into the video, while other
yeah,
people, like I think her name is, well, I'm not going to say her name, she's a certain social media character who prattles on about dystopia warnings. And I actually used to like a lot of what she did, but again, she's hiding the Tories. She's hiding or distracting from Labour's faults as well, saying that the media are always harsher with the Tories, and these are the two defence lines that the Labour sycophants are basically using. Jim and I, you and I, Jim, we were always sceptical of what Labour are going to be when they get in, and I think we basically said they would just be a continuation of what the Tories were doing and what the Tories were guilty of. And
yeah,
to be honest, we've been proven right.
yeah, I would say so.
Mm.
There's a lot of, I've seen a lot of distrust and a lot of disappointment and even anger in regards to
Mm.
what Labour is doing. I mean, the biggest thing which we both predicted before the elections, we predicted saying that they're gonna, introduce austerity measures. We didn't
Mm.
know to what degree, how, or at what extent. And
Mm.
we also said that the way they're gonna justify them is saying, oh, look, we just came into the government and
Yeah.
we see that the previous government has left these problems
Mm.
which is us to introduce austerity measures in order to fix the economy, and lo and
Yeah.
behold,
Yep.
austerity measures are coming. But
And they.
the thing is, I have some friends that they're not necessarily Tories, but they're against Labour and what they stand for.
Mm.
uh, and they're quite, openly dissatisfied with how things are. But speaking from like perspective of someone who is quite in the middle, I will say, and I'm trying to
Mm.
get like a spherical opinion. I think that we have problems now that Labour is on. We would also have problems if the Tories were still on. Maybe in different
Yeah.
areas, maybe even on the same areas, maybe
Mm.
because it's to be expected that there will be some overlap.
Mm.
But what it boils down to is what you said just a few minutes earlier, that pretty much Labour is the continuation of what Tories were doing
Yep.
in maybe not direct continuation that we can tell, but
Mm.
definitely continuation. And we can see this by the different measures they vote, different legislations,
Mm.
and yeah.
I mean, I've heard people try and defend Labour, basically saying, well, it's only been 1 month, it's only been 2 months, it's only been 3 months. Well, okay, fine, fair enough. They might not be able to do much in the first 2 months, but they haven't changed anything yet. They haven't changed the language they use. They're still talking about people's economic productivity. We're still seeing headlines of going after welfare. I mean, Liz Kendall is more extreme with what she wants to do about welfare and sick benefits than the Tories were.
I
Uh,
will say, yeah, I mean, it's a good argument. That's a good argument. But the thing is, the general rule is results almost,
mm,
well, in most cases, they come late. Yes.
yep.
Potential, though, potential shows from the first minute. And we were talking about this, I think, even from the debates. We were saying that
Mm,
the potential of any of these people that are out there debating, like on the the presidential debates, the
Mm,
potential of these people being good leaders, doing something good,
mm.
was minimal, and we
Oh
called
yeah,
it back then, and it showed, and it was like straightforward. If you could see their arguments, how they spoke, and how they defended their points in the debate, you could smell the incompetence.
you could.
And that was for both sides, by the way, not just
Oh
Labour.
yeah, you know, to
Actually, all
start,
sides.
mm. But to start looking at the continuations, one of the things that have gotten me, just to make a few points here, just to get this one out of the way. Obviously, the first thing was removing the energy support for pensioners, that payment, the winter fuel payment for all pensioners, and to combine that with the 10% rise in energy that's coming. And because Labour are no longer in opposition, they no longer have to play that character. So we're not hearing anything about windfall taxes. We're not hearing taxing the energy companies for excess profits. So there's been a few birds killed with one stone there by Labour. They've removed those kinds of sentiments from the national conversation established by the media. Out of sight, out of mind. And again, that they're going after pensioners, removing the winter fuel allowance. Some pensioners have had to go back into work over winter because of that. And what even got me was Rachel Reeves talked about giving it back in credits, which completely nullifies the money saved from taking away the fuel payment to begin with. So it is purely ideological why they're doing it. Or there's some argument, at least, rather, I should say, there's some argument to say because of that. It's ideologically motivated rather than
I
at a
don't
practical
think it's
level.
just ideologically. I mean, yes, part of it might be, but there's also
Mm,
some very interesting stats that I started seeing in terms of like birth rates.
mm.
So the birth rates are declining. Now,
Yep.
to what degree exactly? It's debatable because depending on which
Mm,
site you go, you see different numbers. But one fact is crucial is that, birth rates are declining, and we are ending up becoming, to a degree, grandpa country, in a sense that you have more people getting older than people being
mm.
born. At the same time, this
Yeah.
sort of equates from people who are letting in through the borders via migration.
Mm,
Now, you can debate again how much of this will help with the economy,
mm,
which is a whole separate discussion, which we touched upon here and there, but let's not get into that now.
mm.
But what I'm trying to get at is government doesn't want to pay pensions.
No, they don't. And it's it's because it comes from the same fund as the benefits fund. So they just see it all as one big burden. That's why they keep on
Yeah,
raising the pension age. The one thing as well is it's just to get this in here as well. People who say that the Tories are different, Labour are different from the Tories. No, they're not. Rachel Reeves, just like Rishi Sunak, was an investment banker. She went to private school. Also, she's joined the landlord club. She's renting out properties. So there's a conflict of interest when it comes to any kind of rent reform. The politicians in Labour are not different from the Tories in terms of background. It's the same for the press. The press went to the same schools. Most of the press, well, I'm not going to say most, but some of them definitely do have properties that they earn money from rent, where they earn money from renting. So it's that same bubble of people. And what we're seeing is, well, before I get into the uniparty theory with receiving funding, I did want to get one thing out of the way, just because all of the emphasis has been on the free stuff Starmer received. Labour have always been dodgy when it comes to declaring donations, and there is something to be said about getting free stuff in exchange for access. And there's a
this
lot.
is like it shouldn't be legal. Period.
No, it
I
shouldn't
get
be.
that how the world works, and even if it was
Mm,
illegal, they would still find a way to do it under the
mm,
table. I mean, they
yeah.
probably are already, anyways. But like, it's getting ridiculous at this point.
Well, oh, absolutely. But the thing is, the reason why I don't want to go into too much detail about the free stuff, even though it seems like everyone in the political bubble listens to fucking Taylor Swift, because those kinds of tickets were floating around. But one quick thing I want to say that I won't be going into too much detail into is there seems to be like a rumor in Westminster about Keir Starmer's sexuality, and specifically to the donor who gave him all the suits being gay. There seems to be some kind of rumors floating around that Keir Starmer's bisexual, and Isabel
Yeah,
Oakeshott's
even my
dating.
friends. even my
Hmm?
friends say that. Although my
Yeah,
friends are biased, some of
and
them
the
at least. But
mm,
it's kind of weird because up until they mentioned it, I didn't hear anything about rumors
it
about his
apparently
sexuality.
it was a well-known rumor amongst the Westminster lobby. Isabel Oakeshott basically said it, that there's some kind. She started off by saying that there's some big explosive secret that will bring Stormer down, that the media are going to unleash, which is incredibly well. That's questionable because it means that the media knew things about Stormer that might be in the public interest. I'm not saying his sexuality is, but when you say something along the lines of "there's a secret that will bring Keir Starmer down," that implies there's something in the public interest that will, make him resign. That should have been they should have declared that before the election. That's misrepresenting and concealing the truth, which is not what journalists are supposed to do. But hey, we're all in the world we're in.
One
Just
sec,
because,
that's this because of that phrase you just mentioned that the media will can if sorry not if but when the media make the secret public, it will ruin him.
mm,
Does this mean
yeah,
that the media doesn't like Starmer? Because I was under the impression that
it,
the government is pretty much controlling the media.
I actually think it's the opposite. The government's one of the biggest media clients, and the Westminster lobby uh, journalists have a very close relationship with the government. A lot of the, for example, Times Radio's political editor, she was an assistant to an MP. Apparently, it was a Tory one, and she worked with her son after that. So you could suspect that, and I think it's reasonable that you could suspect that she was basically given a reference to work at the Sun. And it's always said that she softballs politicians or only asks questions that she gets permission to because of that kind of relationship. And that's just her as an example. Eva Santina has basically said that if you ask too many difficult questions, you can get banned from going to conferences and things like that. And so the press have always, the individual Westminster Lobby journalists seem to have a personal relationship. The majority of them do. I know Anna Bolton, used to brag about how he went to Tony Blair's wedding. So you can tell that there's a conflict of interest with those relationships. They're too close to the politicians. A lot of members of the press become get jobs in government. Joey Jones, I think his name was for Sky News, became a social media consultant or something for Theresa May during his election. So I will put the correct name in the video. By the way, it's just I can't think of the guy's name, but he became a social media consultant for Theresa May during her election. But when it comes to the people who own the media companies, the actual media barons, they have a lot of influence over policy. People like apparently Rebecca Brooks was dictating to Kenneth Clark back when he was in office about policies. Rupert Murdoch has more than enough money. I mean, the Murdoch Empire Summer Party last year had Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak, so the opposition leader and the current prime minister at the time, attended that. So I think it's the opposite. I think that the media barons themselves exert a lot of influence over actual government policy. And what I've noticed is that the emphasis on personal scandals like sex scandals and this free stuff, this is pretty tame in comparison to some of what's not getting talked about in the media. One of which was the cronyism, specifically Sue Gray. She's been a migraine for Keir Starmer because she's always been one of his little minions. And there was controversy when he chose her, or when she was picked rather, to be head of the COVID inquiry because she's so close to the Labour government. Her son is a Labour MP. He was parachuted into a safe seat. And before the election, she was given positions out of cronyism. As soon as Starmer got in, she was given a £190,000 a year job that she basically had to resign from. So, that's one element of the cronyism. But when she resigned from that, just to go into what the Guardian said about her, though, actually, before I go into that, from the Guardian, I don't normally look at that paper, but it had a pretty good summary. She'd been accused of micromanaging personnel and limiting access to the Prime Minister's official red box of government papers, so she became extraordinarily powerful. Gray had also been blamed by some insiders for a failure to avoid and control the controversies over freebies, with some claiming she lacked political experience, even though she was credited for knowing exactly how the civil service worked. So she was a good little minion to have in that position. But now that she's resigned, she's been replaced by Morgan McSweeney, who was the mastermind of Labour's election, and his wife is also a Labour MP. she was given a seat, a safe seat, and he's had connections to Starmer for a long time. So we had to go at Boris Johnson for cronyism. What do you call that?
Yeah. The irony is that Starmer used to complain for shit like that.
Mm.
But
When you
now
have an
she's
interview,
doing
sorry.
the same and worse. So
Mm.
yeah, it goes to show that when you're opposition or out of the circle, it's easy to call stuff that are unfair. But as long as this stuff that you call unfair actually become a convenience for you,
Mm.
then it's no longer unfair, especially if you're in
Oh
a
yeah.
position of power.
Oh yeah.
So, yep.
It's also the fact as well that Boris Johnson had an interview where he actually very eloquently took the high ground and brought this up against Starmer. You know that when Boris Johnson's in the right about you, that you've done something wrong, even though it very much was the kettle calling out the pot. But you just found yourself agreeing with the kettle at that particular time because the pot's no longer in power. The other thing as well that you and I have talked about for a while that hasn't been in the media at all, and we don't hear about this one, is the hedge fund from energy and arms companies and also private medical companies that are influencing Labour policies. Specifically, a £4 million tax haven based hedge fund with shares from oil and arms, along with private health firms and asset managers companies, just before the election. That was donated just before the election, and it wasn't declared until 2 months after. There's a wide range of policies that will, and sorry, there is a wide range of policies that will be and have already been shaped from the influence this fund has bought, such as aid to Ukraine to buy weapons, raising energy prices, again not taxing the exorbitant profits of oil companies, removing the windfall tax from the national conversation, and many others. It also explains why the Secretary Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary rather, is fanatical about privatising the NHS. I don't know if you've seen Wes Streeting. The guy looks constantly angry, and his eyes always look like they're about to pop out. He's all for privatising the NHS. Rebecca Cooper, before the election, it comes to mind now. She received a £10,000 donation from a private health company. So we're seeing the same continuation of privatisation from the NHS that we saw with the Tories, that we saw with Tony Blair. So, nothing's it's not different, but more specifically, that hasn't been mentioned. These were the same people, by the way, that were funding the Tories. And it's what I said. It doesn't matter who the incumbent party is. As soon as you get in, it just seems like these donations put you under their influence, if that makes sense. And there'll be more than this money, by the way. The Labour MPs will be networking with these people to get jobs in these industries once they've left power.
I mean, to put it simply, it's like, okay, you're having a subscription to, let's say, Blizzard. Microsoft buys Blizzard. So you still have a subscription, but you're paying Microsoft now, not Blizzard. Basically, that's pretty much what happens here. They pay money for influence, but regardless of the Tories or the Labour, they're just a cog at the end of the day. So the amount remains the same, just the receiving end is what changes.
Yeah.
And ultimately, nothing changes.
Yep. And meanwhile, there's a main headline, and yet again, Taylor Swift is being mentioned in it. So Taylor Swift's getting lots of free advertising from this. In fact, she successfully injected herself into 2 elections now. She was a topic in the American election, and now she's a topic here. Just because, I'm against the government providing a police escort for Taylor Swift. I really am. This woman is a billionaire. I'm sure she's a billionaire, isn't she?
Yeah. A big question though. So you know how Taylor Swift is coming over in London? Is she paying extra when she drives over the non-green areas about the carbon dioxide emissions?
No idea. I have no
I'm
idea.
gonna go and bet that she doesn't.
It's the
Considering that
fact.
she actually comes here with a private jet. I have
Yeah.
a feeling that probably she doesn't pay.
It's like I get that there's been attacks as well at our venues. I fully appreciate that. This woman, if we do have this financial black hole, and sure her shows will bring money into the economy. Again, I fully appreciate that. But this woman is a billionaire. The record company she belongs to will not be short of money either. If I suspect that this police as these police escorts were given to Taylor Swift in exchange again for free tickets from either her or other people who, because some of the tickets came from people who bought them for the Labour MPs, but there was obviously some kind of deals being made with Taylor Swift. I don't know. I mean, is Taylor Swift going to come out and endorse Labour? I've I've got no idea, but
No fucking idea either.
what I
Because
what I
legally she cannot become, how do you call it, an official, fuck, what's the word? She cannot be part of the government because she's not a British
no,
citizen, right?
I don't think so. You've got to be in English. I think you have to be English to hold an English position in government. I would assume so. It's why there was a bit of controversy with Rishi Sunak about potentially having American citizenship because before he came over here, he was trying to get into the Republican Party in the US, I think, or some shit like that. But Taylor Swift concert tickets do lead into another subject because apparently at one of those special boxes at the Taylor Swift concert, you see Keir Starmer is a bit dim. And he thought if he says this to Sky News, yeah, well, you were at the Taylor Swift concert as well. You were in the box with me as well. Or you've invited me to summer parties, or you get your clothes paid for you. Sky News is paying people like is paying for people like Beth Rigby and Kate Burley to be in the Taylor Swift special boxes things. You know, the special preview, the special VIP boxes. I don't know what they're called.
Yeah.
I, I I don't care because Sky News is a private company. I genuinely don't care. But it's the fact that Starmer was trying to drag them down with him. But the problem is Burley replied with yes, but Sky News paid for my tickets. So my question is, what the fuck are politicians and journalists doing in the same VIP box, socializing at Taylor Swift concerts? What are they doing going to summer parties with each other? They shouldn't be allowed to socialize in any way or form, really. And the lack of awareness at that between both the journalist and Starmer.
Yep. I mean, at the end of the day, all the politics and all that, the government itself is a business.
Mm, yeah.
And you could argue, or rather, they could argue, oh, we're here with private funds. But in reality, it could be publicly owned funds. I don't
Yeah.
know. It is what it is, I guess. But yeah, it's stuff like that we should hold them accountable
Mm,
because even though it's legal, morality should play a role when you have the highest position of power available in the society.
absolutely. I think as well.
Which I know today it's like the opposite. The more power you
Mm,
have, the more you can bend moral codes and even
mm,
actual laws, as we've seen countless times. But
yeah.
still, it shouldn't be like that.
No. I think what I find, well, just to lead, actually, no, just to lead into the next subject as well, just to back up what's been saying. You know, again, there's a certain social media personality who says dystopia warning at the beginning of all of their videos. But here's a couple of dystopia warnings. Firstly, minor point, Keir Starmer is introducing a lot more facial recognition to establish more
Yeah,
control over the
I'm not sure
population.
what's happening with that. Like, I heard
Big
this
Big Brother watcher
firstly.
reporting it.
Yeah, I heard this firstly on what was it during the riots
Mm.
that he was thinking
It's
of
it.
introducing it.
There's already been a few wrong arrests and things and some lawsuits against the government. But facial recognition technology, it's not entirely. It's not. It's like a lie detector test. It's very unreliable in its current state, and it's not always admissible in court either.
Ah,
So it's more just to create a surveillance state, I think.
maybe. I don't know.
Mm,
It's weird because you could argue that the more the AI gets better and better,
mm,
the you know
mm.
the more accurate the facial recognition.
But yeah, But there's one topic, and I think you'll be interested in this one, if it comes into what we've talked about before, that's just popped up. Labour are constantly talking about they're constantly talking about productivity, economic productivity of the individual, or the economic duty. Now it's economic productivity. And, well, they're now focusing currently on the obese. Now, on the surface, this seems potentially fair enough, but it's actually, when you go into the details, I'm not sure this is a good thing. So,
Did you say obese?
yeah, they're going after people who are overweight currently. So, what Ed Streeting, the current health secretary, has said is he wants to force the obese who are out of work into work in order to boost the economy. He wants to do this by getting a specialized drug, an injection, a shot, which can make you lose weight. And Keir Starmer has shown some support for this, and it's being talked about more and more. But there are some details about this drug, this shot, that need to be said. First of all, the company that produces it has recently injected 280 million into the British economy. And this drug is due to go into pharmaceutical trial. The drug has side effects. Some are fatal, and at the very least, it causes severe diarrhea and nausea. So it can cause, so for example, in recent tests that have been done with it, it can cause, I think the FDA said, the FDA reported, it can cause pancreatitis, inflammation of the gallbladder, allergic reactions. FDA reported tumors were caused in animal testing, and that may transfer over to humans. It's not guaranteed, but because the FDA believes, because of the cause of the tumors in the animal testing stage, it could cause tumors in humans. Yet we are talking about fucking using it potentially because this country has given 280 million to Labour. And that's without the withdrawal symptoms that can occur from using this. And the thing is, as well, it's because they're justifying this bit because the overweight are an easy target to go for, because in society we blame people for being overweight. It's your own fault if you're overweight kind of attitude.
Not only that, but
Always,
most of these people are on benefits, aren't they? Because if you have a certain weight and above, you cannot
some,
move, hence you can't work, right?
some, but there is a weight limit. You're right. There are some people who are very obese, like life-threateningly, and it's not really a high statistic. Most people who are unemployed are actually underweight, so it's not really, in terms of getting a huge chunk of the population into work, it's not really a huge chunk of the population. It does seem to be that they're promoting this narrative to just test out this product, because a lot of people on benefits underweight. A lot of people are sacrificing meals. Yeah, for sure. There are people who are morbidly obese, life-threateningly, who are claiming benefits. I fully appreciate that, but it's not actually always their fault that they're overweight. That there are some medical conditions that can cause it, and there are conditions associated with medications for conditions that can cause it. Damage to the thyroid, for example, can cause it. But it's not always the person's fault they're overweight. And some people do have eating addictions. I fully appreciate that. I'm just saying, on the surface, this policy is not the miracle that it claims to be. And what we're basically doing is, and what he wants to do, is basically say to these people, either take this medical treatment, or you're going to lose your benefits.
I mean, it with COVID, didn't it? Like, you either take the vaccine or you lose your job. I'm not sure how much was this enforced here in the UK. I mean, I was pretty much got spammed on my phone to get the vaccine, but in Greece, there were a lot of people, doctors even, that lost their jobs because they didn't take the vaccine, and they haven't been hired since. And I don't know if they even have the right to be hired. And just before things cooled down, there was a law, they were about to vote a law that would stop pensioners from receiving pension unless they would take the vaccine.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, afterwards it came out that people of a certain age and above are more, it's more dangerous to that particular group of people of certain age and above. But in Greece, they'd almost vote a law that would prevent you from getting pension unless you got the vaccine. So yeah, I mean, they've already done it once,
Mm.
So I can totally see them doing it again for, as you said. Now, what was it? The
The weight loss injection.
anti-obesity, weight loss
Mm.
injection.
It's it's also a very dangerous combination that it's due to go into pharmaceutical trials. And again, it's not long after a huge injection of money from this company that there's talk of a targeted policy saying if people are overweight, they either take this medical injection or they lose their benefits.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a good combination. Even if
no,
you
it's
agree with
not.
the principle that overweight people should be made to should be made to exercise, okay, that's your opinion. But remember,
That's different because
yeah,
this is an external factor, whereas
talking about
injections is a whole different level. Medication,
yeah,
when
we're
it's
talking
like
about forced
forced,
medical procedures.
more like forced experimental medical
Oh yes, sir.
procedures,
Yeah.
because you're pretty much becoming a lab rat for them
Mm.
in a sense.
You know, if the Tories did this, it would be all over the media. Because even the Tory opposition, because you know this is bad because the Tory opposition papers aren't talking about that because they want this to happen as well.
Of course, they have stocks on these private companies as well, don't they? I
Probably,
mean, they
yeah,
were the
most
ones.
likely.
Well, Sunak was the one that wanted to introduce the what was it, like the 6 month trial period for to get free medication.
I honestly can't remember.
So it was a policy that basically people with benefits that had chronic diseases, they would get 6 months of consulting for free or 6 month medication for free.
Oh, yeah, it was part
I
of.
can't remember the
Sorry,
exact wording. I can't remember the exact wording.
there was
But
there was
yeah,
that there was that many of them. It was during when it was when it was during when he was this phase when he was talking about all of these sick benefit welfare reforms, and they were just coming out with idea after idea after idea to see what the public would go for. So there were a few of them. Vouchers were named. Counselling was named as well. There were that many. It wouldn't surprise me.
yeah.
And again, you've got all of these stories in, and when the media, by the way, were covering this drug, sorry, they were calling it a miracle drug, and they were slamming the NHS for not having enough of it, and they were going for the cases of people who could take this thing without any side effects and say that they wouldn't have lost weight without it. But those people chose to take it and sought after it. If you have a medication that could potentially kill 30% of people who take it, that's 3 out of 10. That's 3 people dying too many from the medication that's being forced on them. If you fully educate yourself about these risks and you want to go out and you want to go on this drug to lose the weight, that's fine. But it's not the government's role to force people to
To force
use
it
it.
for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if they cook up numbers,
Mm.
they can keep pushing it. It's just vile, really. It's again
It is,
one
and
extra thing on the pile of bad
it,
things
it
they.
it really shows. All you've got to do is have a policy that makes something that normalizes something like forcing medical procedures on people, or forcing them to trial test drugs or something. All you have to
The
do is
scariest
aim
thing is nothing can stop them because we
it.
are in
Well, it's why it's so beautiful having the unemployed do it because all you have to do is threaten to take the benefits off them and force them, and it's evil. And this isn't about people who are unemployed. This is about what can be done to you once this is normalized working.
yeah, and people won't bat an eye
Mm,
because they have that much control over things.
true. I mean, I didn't think things would be this bad. I mean, you've already seen as well things floating around the news saying things like, "Oh, well, we'll get rid of the pensioner bus pass" and things like that. Now, what Labour what governments always do is they give these little stories to the newspapers, leak them as rumours from an anonymous source, and see how the public react to them to see if they can get away with it. So they are thinking of getting rid of pensioners bus passes. Whether they do it or not, or have done it or not, is another thing entirely. At the time of recording.
Yeah.
Overall, not only am I not seeing any change from Labour, what we're seeing is the same agenda that the Tories had from a party that's just won an election and has 4 years ahead of them.
Yep.
So they can afford to do. They're going to be worse than the Tories.
Yeah.
people seem to think that if they can get rid of Starmer and the centre rightists in there, like all the Blairites, things might turn around. I'm not so sure. I've lost all faith in any kind of government being able to do anything. I'm not 100% sure that Jeremy Corbyn could have even stopped stuff like this, or that he wouldn't have succumbed to temptation. That's
He
speculation
would
on my
probably be
part. I
worse.
appreciate. Hmm?
He would probably be worse. Like Corbyn
Hmm.
remind me a lot of our Prime Minister Tsipras, who was in rule, think about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was vile. So yeah, I was actually scared shitless when he was running for presidency because he it brought me flashbacks of how things were in Greece.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, they're different people, but the way they talked and behaved was quite
Hmm.
similar, and it scared me.
Yeah. I think for me, all of the arguments to defend what Labour are, oh, they've not been in long enough. Oh, they're just lying to get people who are right wing on their side. They're going to stealthily change things.
I mean, how
I think it's
long
all.
is long enough?
Yeah.
Well, let's start with
Even
that.
even Carol Vorderman turned on Labour a little bit with some of the policies. It's
Because
like the
4 months,
Democrats and
that's like a quarter. If you cannot
yeah,
do some stuff in a quarter, I'm not
yeah.
talking about drastic changes. One
Mm.
area at least should show
One
promise
one
for improvement. One area.
one one statement even. Even
Yes, not yeah.
there's been no sentiments whatsoever
I
other
mean,
than the Tories failed.
rather than statements or planning or anything like that, all
Mm.
we had is like one scandal after another.
Yeah. And it's the fact that Labour aren't even hiding that they have the same policy intentions as the Tories anymore.
Yep.
Like I said, Liz Kendall's attitude towards welfare benefits. She belongs in the Tory party. She probably only joined Labour because she knew that she had a better chance of getting elected at some point in Labour. Once the Tories crash and burn. For me, I think that the problem is that Labour's success was defined on Tory failure, and it's defined by now we're in, we're going to improve everything. And then they're just putting in the same kind of policies that the Tories would put in because they're being funded by the same people. Only they're going to do it without any kind of restraint because they've just gotten into power and they have a majority. So they know they're safe for a while. I don't think getting rid of Keir Starmer is going to change anything because there'll be someone like him who's willing to replace him.
Yep.
So let's be honest as well. The Tories aren't even worth talking about right now because they collapsed right now as opposition. But that was always going to happen.
Yeah, they're trying to figure the shit out at the moment.
Yeah, they've
They're
got a
going
safety
through
period to do it.
the restructure, all that, you know. They're rebranding themselves as the solution, the go-to solution for the next 4 year cycles. So
Hmm.
yeah, there's
One
been some heavy restructuring and rebranding to appear as, oh, we're new, we're gonna
yeah.
change the world again.
One thing I
So
think is really one thing I think is really funny about the Tory leadership race, and I just want to put this one out there. In Warhammer 40,000, you never divide your units fire. When you play with the little miniatures, you never if you have a squad, you don't really shoot at two targets because just even though statistically you have a good chance of success, no matter how many times you do it, it never works out. If you dilute your firepower across more than one target, you end up doing fuck all to two targets when you could have done significant damage or taken significant casualties from a single target squad or a vehicle. It never works out. And what James cleverly tried to do was divide his votes between himself, Generic, and Badenoch in order to control who his opponent would be in the final, and ended up getting knocked out himself when he was the favourite to get in because he had too many of his own people vote for other candidates.
damn.
But yeah, I think that's more or less it, really, that I'd like to talk about. Is there anything you want to bring up or anything else you want to add?
No.
Cool. Well, this was our reaction to Labour's first 3 months in government. As you can see, we are not fans. of the Labour government. So I'm Jonathan. I'm your host, Jonathan, here with my co-host Jim.
Yo.
And don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe, because or leave a comment as well, whether you agree or disagree. Jim does love to argue. Any interaction with the channel whatsoever really helps us out a lot. So if you got anything out of this, please interact with the channel. Bye, guys.
Bye.